I'm not going to stand here in front of one of the great wonders of the world and argue about an old movie. I'll go back inside. If you figure out some plan to make $800 last a lifetime, knock on the door. I'll be in there.
You're listening to the Keeping Your Money Show with Jamie Westenbarger and Bart Steinler.
All right, welcome back to Keep Your Money Show. Jamie Westenbarger, joined as always by Bart Steinler. We were talking about the loss of opportunity costs, really understanding that it's not what you're spending or not spending today. It's not what the cost is today. It's what is the real cost when you look at what that money would have done elsewhere. Big part of planning. I mean, big part of planning. If you're not looking at the difference between now and later, you're kind of missing a good chunk of it. And I think it's hard for people to concentrate on that sometimes, right? Because it's such an abstract thought. It's like, well, what would this be 30 years from now?
Yeah. I think it's really helpful to kind of study what's going on in people's lives that are 10 and 20 and 30 years older than you, because I think you can anticipate some of the things that might happen. And you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you hit a certain age, you may be healthy for many, many years. You may start to have health problems in your 60s, in your 70s, in your 80s. You just don't know. So when you're building a plan for your retirement, you want to make sure that you're enjoying your life along the way, because, the time is precious and we don't know how much we have. But you also want to make sure that you're planning some, contingencies, because everything that happens is not going to be good stuff. Sooner or later in everyone's life, you have some bad stuff that happens. And that kind of brings us to an article here by Mary Beth Franklin, and she's talking about Medicare and the high cost of prescription drugs. And she talks about a financial advisor who, of course, that's what we are, and so it kind of caught our attention. And he started going through some very serious health issues at age 68. And, he had signed up for Medicare, and he had the Part D program and all that kind of stuff. But even with that, he was running into substantial out-of-pocket cost.
And I mean, let's just address these substantial out-of-pocket costs. First of all, the cost of drugs in this country is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Like, I fully appreciate how amazing our medical system is and the amazing levels of research and development that go into creating a drug. But when you have someone who has all of the necessary insurance coverages they can possibly have, right, and then still faces the reality like this gentleman, that his cost for a drug that could save his life is $15,000 a month. And even after he's met all the deductibles and co-insurance and donut holes and everything else of Medicare Part D, the least this drug will cost him is $750. The least. I mean, what on earth is... I mean, that's insane.
Right.
How is the average person... So, I mean, when you're 80 years old and, you're facing some complicated illness... you're supposed to just have $500,000 laying around to cover your drug expenses, because that's kind of what it looks like.
Right, and the $750 a month, I mean, that was just covering the drug. That wasn't covering the insurance premium.
Right.
It wasn't covering...
That's just his copay.
It wasn't covering all the vitamins and the supplements that he had to take because of his condition. So, absolutely astronomical. Now, he was a very successful person, and he continues to work and he continues to teach, and so he's been able to make those payments. But the vast majority of people out there are not going to be able to make those. They're not going to have that kind of money. So I think it behooves us to also, consider that you want to have an extra amount of money that you're saving for. It gives you more of a reason that you want to save for, because you want to be able to afford the treatment that's going to give you the best chance of living. You say now, maybe some people have the attitude to say, well, if I get that bad, I'm just going to let it go. But when you're actually the person who is that bad, and there's an opportunity for you to get better, and it just means you got to have the money to pay for it to be able to take care of that opportunity, you're going to want to be the person that can pay for it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I was actually reading a thing that I think maybe we'll talk about it next week too, is this idea that like right now, if you are in the top 10% of income in the country, your life expectancy is actually 12 years longer than the average life expectancy in America. And it comes down to ability to pay. I mean, it really does. And at some point in time, sure, that may all change. We all may end up with Medicare for all or some other type of universal health care, but that's been talked about since the 70s and it still doesn't exist. So when you're planning for, your retirement that may be coming in a shorter amount of time, then you have to realize that if you have the money, you will call the shots. It's the same thing with long-term care. We talk about this all the time. There are plenty of people out there whose opinion is to try and divest all of your money away so you qualify for Medicaid.
And they'll sell you a plan for $10,000 to show you how to do that.
Absolutely.
That's part of how they divest your money.
Yeah, they take 10 from you right away. But I mean, seriously, is that a strategy? Sure. Is that a strategy you want to employ if you're 60 years old? Not in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be a shortage of long-term care beds in about the next 10 or 15 years because the baby boomers are exceeding, we heard about it, 10 years ago was the kind of the balloon of Social Security, right? Well, all those people are getting older. All those people are in kind of that golden era of needing long-term care. I assure you the long-term care facilities did not build out beds to accommodate a 10-year glut. That's not how it works. So if you're in that kind of huge baby boomer group that may need long-term care, you do not want Medicaid to be the way you're going to get care. That is a horrible idea. You want to have the ability to say, how much do I need to write the check for? Because that's how you're going to get the kind of care you want. I don't want to be that guy sitting in the wheelchair in the hallway being ignored because Medicaid's paying a third of what everyone else is. I want to be the guy that wrote the check and can demand the service that I want for the place I'm at, or for my loved one.
Right. And, like this Mr. Sorkin in this article said, he says, and this is a guy who is working as a financial planner, helping people plan.
Right.
And he was still shocked. He said, my medical costs have far exceeded what I ever thought I would need to spend at my age. Mm-hmm. I am fortunate, but how many seniors can afford this expense?
Well, and you also have to realize, too, that we're going to see more and more of this because as we live to become older, of course, the illnesses become more complex. How many people do you know that fell and broke their hip in their 90s and it becomes fatal eventually because infection gets into the body? Whereas if you had done that in your 50s, it would have been a relatively easy recovery, right? Well, the same thing with anything else. If you get cancer in your 80s, it's going to be a much more costly recovery because you're just not going to bounce back like you did when you were in your 50s or 60s. So as we continue to live longer and see people in retirement, I mean, in our lifetime, it's going to be very common to see people in their hundreds. It's like a thing now. Oh, she's 104, It's not going to be as big of a deal. It's already less of a deal than it was even 20 years ago. But in another 20 years, it's going to be even less of a big deal.
Yeah, every year the population of people who are over than 100 grows.
Yep.
So.
Yep, absolutely. So big things to think about there. Make sure, you're planning for medical costs in retirement because they're going to be there. And unless you have some grandfathered health insurance plan from one of those Fortune 500 companies, then much of that doesn't exist anymore. But if you're lucky enough to, if you don't have that, you're going to have to definitely plan on that being part of your expense picture. So, all right, coming up, we're going to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly with financial advisors here on the Keeping Your Money Show. Remember, if you ever want to contact us, you can do so 888-98-MONEY. That's 888-986-6639.
There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to planning your future. Jamie, Bart, and all of the advisors at the Keeping Your Money Show understand that your financial goals are unique and your needs are going to change at varying stages of your life. Our team of advisors can help you tailor a financial plan that meets your unique needs. Call us today at 1-888-98-MONEY or visit keepingyourmoney.com to schedule your free initial consultation.